Hey guys, tonight we step into the fascinating world of ancient Roman hygiene, where the line between the quirky and the practical was often delightfully blurred. Picture yourself walking through the bustling streets of Rome, the sun glinting off the marble temples, the hum of voices, the smell of freshly baked bread in the air, and, you won't believe this, people cleaning their teeth with urine. Yes, you heard that right. You probably won't survive this, but then again, they didn't have the luxury of modern toothpaste, so who's to say? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments, it's always interesting to see where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Now, let's get to it. You may have heard of some of the bizarre practices in ancient civilizations, but the Romans took the idea of using everyday substances for unexpected purposes to a whole new level. Among the more eyebrow-raising practices was their unique approach to teeth whitening, and believe it or not, it involved urine. Yes, the same substance we might avoid at all costs was once considered an essential item in Roman life, not just for cleaning clothes and treating wounds, but for something far more personal, dental care. Romans had a lot of ways to keep their bodies in shape and their appearances pristine. But while their public baths, oils, and perfumes are well known, their use of urine for something as intimate as teeth whitening might just take the crown for oddest hygiene hack in history. But the story gets even more fascinating as we explore how urine found its way into almost every aspect of Roman life. Let's see how this humble liquid became their secret weapon for bright, white teeth. Now that we've got you hooked, let's take a deeper dive into the multifaceted role that urine played in Roman life. As strange as it may sound to us today, urine wasn't just something to be avoided or disposed of, it was a valuable resource in the Roman world. In fact, the Romans saw urine as one of their essential household commodities, used for everything from cleaning to medicine. You might not expect it, but the use of urine was so widespread in Roman society that it was taxed. Yes, you read that right, Romans were taxed for their urine. In the bustling city of Rome, urine was collected from public latrines, where citizens would relieve themselves, and transported to various industries where it served a variety of practical purposes. The most famous of these industries was laundry. Roman laundries, known as phallonica, used urine as a primary ingredient in their cleaning process. It was believed that the ammonia in the urine helped bleach and clean the cloth, making it an effective natural detergent. The Romans would soak their clothes in vats filled with urine, knead the fabric with their feet, and rinse it out to achieve sparkling clean clothes. This method wasn't just effective, it was economical, making urine a vital part of Roman daily life. Now, let's talk about the smell. I can only imagine the olfactory assault of a phallonica, urine-soaked clothes, ammonia in the air, and the constant hustle and bustle of workers. But to the Romans, this was the price of cleanliness. For them, it was simply part of a world where innovation and practicality often overcame any social taboos. The use of urine didn't stop at laundry, though. It had medicinal applications too. Roman doctors, like those of many ancient civilizations, used urine to treat wounds and diseases. They even used it as a diagnostic tool, examining the color and consistency to determine a person's health. Historians still argue about how widespread the use of urine truly was in Roman society. Was it a universal practice, or was it just confined to certain classes or professions? Some scholars believe it was a practical necessity for the working classes, while others argue that the elite, who could afford alternative methods, still found value in this natural resource. Despite the debate, it's clear that urine was more than just a waste product, it was a cornerstone of Roman life. It was used for everything, from keeping the streets clean to ensuring white teeth and laundry that dazzled in the sun. Now that you know how integral urine was to daily Roman life, let's zoom in on the most fascinating use of this ubiquitous liquid, teeth whitening. It might sound hard to believe, but in ancient Rome, urine was one of the key ingredients in a teeth whitening regimen that was considered essential for personal grooming and social status. Imagine this, you, an ancient Roman, looking to maintain those bright, pearly whites, not with toothpaste but with, You guessed it, urine. No need to head to the pharmacy, you just need a bottle of urine and a little dedication. But why on earth would urine be chosen for such an intimate use? The answer lies in its chemical composition. The ammonia in urine, which gives it that unmistakable sharp smell, was believed to be the magic ingredient for removing stains from teeth. Ammonia, a powerful natural cleaner, breaks down grime and stains, making it an effective bleach in a time long before modern chemical whitening agents. The Romans, though lacking our understanding of chemistry, understood the power of ammonia to clean and purify, and they made the most of this discovery by applying it to their teeth. You might be wondering, did it actually work? Well, sort of. While it wasn't the kind of pristine, sparkling whiteness we get from modern whitening strips, urine certainly did lighten the teeth to some degree. It wasn't the only method, either. Romans often combined urine with other ingredients like crushed charcoal or pumice to enhance the whitening effect. They might have even used a mixture of urine and vinegar, relying on the acidity of both substances to tackle stubborn stains. Historians still argue over how widely this practice was adopted. Was it a common technique for all Romans, or was it mostly reserved for the wealthy, who could afford to buy or produce enough urine for their daily dental routines? Some scholars believe the use of urine for whitening was quite widespread, while others suggest it might have been used more by the upper classes, who had the resources to create specialized cleaning mixtures. What we can say with certainty is that the whitening of teeth was an important aspect of Roman grooming, as physical appearance was deeply tied to one's social standing. The more polished and refined you appeared, the higher your status in society. In fact, many Romans took great pride in their hygiene, and it was considered a reflection of personal virtue. This obsession with cleanliness extended to their teeth, which were seen as an indicator of one's overall health and beauty. So, while the method of whitening teeth with urine may seem odd to us today, it made perfect sense in ancient Rome. After all, the Romans weren't shy about using whatever resources were available to them, and if urine could clean clothes and treat wounds, why not try it on their teeth? Now that we've set the stage for the Roman fascination with urine, let's take a closer look at how exactly it worked as a whitening agent. The science behind it is simpler than you might think, well, simpler if you don't mind the slightly unpleasant notion of using urine for something so personal. At its core, urine's effectiveness as a teeth whitening agent comes down to one key compound, ammonia. Ammonia, a naturally occurring chemical found in urine, has powerful cleaning properties. In fact, it's still used today in household cleaning products because of its ability to break down stains and grime. When applied to the teeth, ammonia acts as a bleaching agent, helping to remove surface stains caused by food and drink. While it wasn't as effective as modern-day whitening agents like hydrogen peroxide, ammonia in urine could at least help lighten the teeth and maintain their appearance. It's not a glamorous process, but it worked for the Romans, and, let's be honest, they didn't have much else to go on in the dental care department. Now, you might be wondering just how the Romans figured out that urine had this amazing effect on their teeth. Was it just trial and error, or was it passed down through generations of Roman oral care knowledge? Historians still debate this. Some believe that the use of urine in mummification rituals, which we've already explored, might have given the Egyptians, and later the Romans, a head start in recognizing urine's preservative properties. Others suggest that the practice of using ammonia-based substances in cleaning practices led to the discovery of its whitening potential. Whatever the case, the practice spread through Roman society, and it wasn't long before urine was considered an essential tool in personal care. But here's the kicker, the idea of using ammonia for whitening teeth wasn't entirely unique to the Romans. The practice of using urine or ammonia-like substances for oral hygiene stretches back to other ancient cultures as well. Ancient Greeks, for example, were known to use a mixture of vinegar and urine to whiten their teeth. The fact that these societies recognized ammonia's bleaching abilities shows just how valuable this compound was in the pre-modern world. So, while the practice might seem absurd today, it was rooted in an understanding of basic chemistry, even if it wasn't understood in the way we understand it now. Historians still argue over whether the ammonia in urine was the most effective whitening agent for Romans. Some scholars believe it was a lucky coincidence that ammonia worked to bleach teeth, while others argue that it was a result of careful observation and trial. Regardless of how the Romans discovered it, there's no denying that urine became an important, and surprisingly effective, part of their daily routine. So, the next time you find yourself staring at a tube of toothpaste, remember that the Romans were getting their teeth sparkling white with something a little less minty and a lot more pungent. Let's take a step back from the science of whitening and focus on why white teeth were so important to the ancient Romans in the first place. In today's world, we tend to associate a bright smile with good health, wealth, or even attractiveness. But for the Romans, a radiant smile was far more than just a cosmetic concern. It was tied directly to one's social status, self-image, and even moral virtue. A bright set of teeth could make or break someone's reputation, and it wasn't just the upper classes who cared about their appearance. The idea of maintaining white, healthy teeth was pervasive throughout Roman society. White teeth, in the Roman world, were seen as a reflection of overall cleanliness, good health, and refinement. After all, they didn't have modern dental care like we do. If your teeth were yellowed or rotting, it was likely a sign of a less than ideal lifestyle. It suggested that you didn't care for yourself, or worse, that you weren't wealthy or powerful enough to afford the resources to keep your smile in top shape. A brilliant, gleaming smile, on the other hand, marked you as someone with means, someone who had the time, effort, and wealth to maintain their appearance. In Roman society, where status and appearance mattered immensely, white teeth were a clear indicator of your position in life. You didn't just smile for aesthetic reasons, you smiled to demonstrate that you were well-fed, well-kept, and deserving of respect. A white smile wasn't just attractive, it was a sign of success and, quite possibly, moral purity. The pursuit of personal hygiene, which was considered a reflection of one's inner virtue, was an essential element of a Roman's public persona. You might be surprised to learn that this wasn't just a luxury for the upper classes. Although the wealthier Romans could afford the finer things in life, including better dental care, commoners also had a vested interest in maintaining their teeth. The use of urine as a teeth-whitening agent, which we've already discussed, was surprisingly accessible. Since urine was freely available and inexpensive, even lower-class Romans could take part in the pursuit of white teeth. Of course, they weren't likely to have access to the same kind of luxury treatments or dental instruments as the elite, but the practice of whitening teeth with urine was a somewhat leveler of social standing, allowing all classes to participate in maintaining a healthy, presentable appearance. Historians still argue whether the obsession with white teeth in ancient Rome was purely aesthetic or whether it had deeper cultural and moral implications. Some scholars suggest that it was a sign of divine favor, being in good health was associated with the gods' blessings. Others believe it was tied to the idea of purity, especially in a society where appearances played such a huge role in maintaining public order. Either way, teeth whitening wasn't just about vanity, it was about embodying a certain set of values that helped one maintain respect and status in Roman society. In the grand scheme of Roman beauty standards, teeth were just one of many ways in which personal hygiene and grooming intersected with social standing. From head to toe, the Romans took great pride in their appearance, understanding that how you presented yourself was often how you were judged by others. A sparkling smile, courtesy of a little ammonia and urine, was just one of the ways they communicated their place in the world. Let's shift gears a bit and take a look at the tools and techniques that the ancient Romans used to keep their teeth in tip-top shape, aside from the whole urine thing. While they didn't have electric toothbrushes or professional cleanings, Romans were surprisingly resourceful when it came to oral hygiene. From toothpicks to abrasive pastes, the Romans did their best to keep their mouths fresh and clean using the materials at their disposal. One of the most commonly used tools for dental care in ancient Rome was the toothpick. Now, I know what you're thinking, nothing new about a toothpick, right? But in Roman times, the toothpick was an absolute must-have accessory. These weren't just any toothpicks, though. The Romans used toothpicks made from a variety of materials, from wood to metal to bone. Toothpicks were used after meals to remove bits of food from between the teeth and gums, which, let's face it, were pretty much a necessity given the diet they consumed. Imagine all those delicious ancient Roman feasts: bread, fish, olives, and wine, stuck between your teeth, just waiting to be extracted. Historians still debate the exact materials the Romans preferred for their toothpicks. Some argue that bone toothpicks were the most common, as bone was durable and easy to carve into thin, sharp shapes. Others believe that wood was more widely used, possibly due to its natural availability and ease of use. What's clear is that toothpicks were an essential part of Roman dental hygiene and were likely found in every Roman household. They may not have had the plastic picks we use today, but the Romans understood the importance of cleaning their teeth after eating. Another key element of Roman oral care was their use of abrasive toothpastes. These weren't like the minty fresh pastes we use today, but they were still aimed at polishing and cleaning the teeth. Roman dental pastes often contained powdered ingredients like pumice, crushed bones, and charcoal. These materials were abrasive enough to help scrub the teeth and remove surface stains, much like a natural, gritty whitening paste. The abrasiveness of these powders might have even been a precursor to modern toothpaste formulations, although I wouldn't recommend trying it at home. The Romans also used a form of mouthwash, though it wasn't made from mint or herbs like our modern versions. Instead, they used vinegar or a mix of salt water, which would have had mild antiseptic properties. Vinegar, with its acidic nature, might have helped to clean the mouth and prevent bad breath. But this method wasn't just about the freshness of your breath, it was about keeping the teeth and gums healthy and free from infection. Historians still argue over the overall effectiveness of these ancient Roman dental tools and techniques. While we know that the toothpicks and abrasive powders helped with basic hygiene, it's unclear just how well they maintained the health of their teeth in the long run. Some believe that Romans likely had a much higher incidence of tooth decay and gum disease than we do today, while others argue that their methods were more effective than we give them credit for. Whatever the case, it's clear that Romans were far more diligent about their oral hygiene than we often assume, and they were clever in using what they had to keep their teeth and gums in good shape. As we explore the peculiarities of Roman dental care, let's broaden our focus to take in their overall approach to personal grooming. Hygiene in ancient Rome wasn't limited to just teeth, far from it. The Romans took grooming seriously, and personal appearance was a marker of one's social status and moral virtue. Bathing, oils, perfumes, and grooming tools were all integral to maintaining both a refined public image and personal health. First, let's talk about the famous Roman bathhouses. These public places were a hub for socializing, relaxation, and personal hygiene. The Romans were absolutely obsessed with cleanliness, and their bathhouses were incredibly advanced for their time. They included multiple rooms with varying temperatures, such as the frigidarium, cold room, tepidarium, warm room, and caldarium, hot room. The hot steam, warm pools, and even massage services were all aimed at cleansing both the body and the mind. After a visit to the baths, Romans would often rub themselves down with oils, which not only kept the skin soft but also helped to remove dirt and dead skin cells. Some of these oils were scented, adding an extra touch of luxury to their grooming rituals. But when it came to hair, the Romans had plenty of tools at their disposal. Both men and women, especially those of higher social rank, were keen on keeping their hair styled and neat. They used combs, scissors, and razors, typically made from bronze or iron, to cut and maintain their hair. Wigs were also quite popular in Roman society, especially for the wealthy elite who sought to emulate the fashion of the imperial court. The famous Roman Emperor Augustus, for example, was known for his carefully styled hair, and it wasn't uncommon for individuals to wear elaborate wigs or hairpieces to achieve the perfect look. Beyond hair and bathing, personal scent was also a major concern. Romans used perfumes made from oils, flowers, and even animal fats to create enticing scents. They understood the power of fragrance, not just to smell pleasant but as a way of signaling wealth, class, and refinement. In fact, perfumes were so valued in Roman society that the wealthy would often commission custom fragrances from perfume makers. The most famous perfume maker of the time, a woman named Mithridates, was said to have crafted scents so exquisite that they became highly coveted by the Roman elite. Historians still debate whether Roman society's obsession with grooming was simply a matter of fashion, or whether it had deeper cultural and social significance. Was cleanliness and appearance tied to their values of discipline and virtue, or was it more about showcasing wealth and status? Some argue that it was a reflection of their belief in Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods, where personal cleanliness and well-maintained appearance were seen as pleasing to the gods and an indicator of moral integrity. Others believe it was simply a way to maintain a highly structured society where appearance was a reflection of one's role and place. Either way, one thing is clear: grooming was a big deal in ancient Rome. Teeth whitening with urine might have been strange, but it was just one part of a larger culture that valued personal care and cleanliness. For the Romans, keeping up appearances wasn't just about beauty, it was about embodying the values of Roman society, from the lowliest citizen to the most powerful emperor. We've already seen how Romans used urine in a variety of ways, but there's one aspect that might make you cringe even more than the idea of whitening teeth with it: laundry. Yes, urine was an essential part of the Roman laundry process. But don't worry, it wasn't just about soaking clothes in pee and hoping for the best. There was a method behind this madness. Urine, particularly its ammonia content, was believed to work wonders when it came to removing stains and whitening fabric, making it an indispensable tool for Romans who valued their appearance and cleanliness. Roman laundries, known as phalanca, were busy places where the lower classes often went to have their clothing cleaned. These laundries were an essential part of Roman urban life, located in cities across the empire, where clothing was frequently soiled from the dust and dirt of daily life. Given the high cost of materials like soap or imported cleaners, urine became the go-to solution. Workers would collect urine from public latrines, and then transport it to the phalanca, where it would be stored in large vats. Once there, it was mixed with other ingredients like water or alkaline substances, creating a potent solution for cleaning. Here's where things get really interesting: once the clothes were soaked in the urine mixture, the workers would physically stomp on them with their feet. Yep, you read that right. Just imagine the sight of a phalanca worker hopping around in a giant vat of ammonia-soaked clothes. This foot scrubbing technique was used to work the liquid into the fibers of the fabric, breaking down dirt and stains. As unpleasant as it sounds, it was remarkably effective, and the ammonia did a great job of bleaching the fabric, making it look fresh and clean. Historians still debate how widespread this practice truly was. Some believe that it was confined mainly to the lower classes, who couldn't afford better laundry methods, while others suggest it was a more universal practice. After all, if you wanted your toga to look pristine for an important social event or public appearance, you'd need to ensure it was properly cleaned, and urine was the cheapest, most effective option available. Even the Roman elite, despite their wealth and access to luxury, might have used urine for their laundry, especially considering how important cleanliness and appearance were in Roman society. This use of urine in laundering even became a form of commerce. There are accounts of the Roman Emperor Vespasian imposing a tax on the collection of urine. In fact, public latrines were often controlled by the state, and the urine collected from them was sold to laundries for a profit. This practice became so prevalent that people began to refer to this urine tax as the urine tax, which, interestingly enough, is where we get the modern-day phrase, "money doesn't stink," implying that even money from dirty sources is valuable. So, while it may seem unfathomable to modern sensibilities, urine was an integral part of Roman hygiene and commerce. The phalanca wasn't just about washing dirty clothes, it was a place where Roman society's obsession with cleanliness, status, and economy all came together. And it wasn't just about personal hygiene either. The state saw urine as a commodity, something that could be taxed and sold to fund the empire. The world of Roman laundry, like the use of urine in teeth whitening, was one that was not only about innovation but also about making use of every resource available, no matter how peculiar it might seem to us today. Now that we've covered the use of urine in laundry and teeth whitening, it's time to broaden the discussion and talk about the Romans' overall approach to oral health. The Romans weren't just focused on having a dazzling smile, they understood the importance of keeping their teeth, and by extension, their mouths, healthy. While they didn't have the luxury of modern dentistry, they had their own methods for dealing with common oral issues, like bad breath, toothaches, and even gum disease. Let's take a deeper look at the methods the Romans used to maintain oral health. The concept of oral hygiene in ancient Rome was far from our modern practices, but the Romans were surprisingly adept at dealing with dental issues. Aside from using urine to whiten teeth, the Romans employed a variety of other tools and techniques. For example, they often used toothpicks made from bone, metal, or even wood to clean between their teeth. These toothpicks were simple, practical tools, but they were essential in the fight against the buildup of food particles and plaque that could lead to bad breath and tooth decay. In addition to toothpicks, Romans were known to chew on substances like mint and myrrh to freshen their breath. They even used powdered charcoal, crushed bones, and other abrasive materials to help clean their teeth and gums. The abrasiveness of these materials helped scrub away stains and plaque, much like how modern toothpaste works today, just without the minty freshness. Despite the lack of sophisticated dental tools, the Romans were surprisingly thorough when it came to taking care of their teeth. Historians still debate how much the Romans truly understood about the science behind dental health. Were they just using trial and error, or did they have a more advanced understanding of oral care than we give them credit for? Some scholars believe that the Romans had a fairly advanced understanding of how to keep teeth healthy and clean, even if they didn't know the specifics of cavities or tooth decay in the way we do today. Others argue that their methods were simply pragmatic solutions to the problems they encountered. What we do know is that oral health wasn't just a matter of appearance, it was an important part of Roman well-being. Clean teeth and fresh breath were symbols of hygiene, and personal hygiene was tightly linked to moral virtue in Roman society. A well-groomed, well-maintained body, including a healthy mouth, was seen as a sign of discipline and respectability. So, whether it was through the use of toothpicks, abrasive powders, or chewing on herbs, the Romans took great care in maintaining their oral health, understanding that a healthy smile was an important part of maintaining a positive public image. In fact, Roman hygiene and dental care were so important that they became ingrained in the social fabric of the time. Public baths were not just places to wash up, they were social hubs where people of all classes mingled, talked, and groomed themselves. Similarly, keeping one's teeth white and healthy was a status symbol, as it indicated not just physical beauty but also moral integrity and social standing. In this sense, oral health was as much about personal virtue as it was about cleanliness. At this point, you might be wondering, did all this urine use actually work, or was it just a strange cultural practice passed down through generations? Well, historians still argue about the true effectiveness of urine as a teeth-whitening agent. On the one hand, urine, particularly the ammonia it contains, certainly has strong cleaning properties. It's known to break down stains and has been used for various cleaning and whitening tasks throughout history. But on the other hand, how effective was it really at brightening teeth compared to modern methods? Urine's ability to whiten teeth was largely due to its high ammonia content. Ammonia is a natural compound that can act as a bleaching agent, and it was used not just in teeth whitening but also in laundry, as we saw earlier. In fact, its cleaning abilities were probably more effective for whitening fabric than for dental care. While it's plausible that the use of urine made teeth look somewhat whiter by removing surface stains, it likely wasn't as effective as today's professional whitening treatments. So, did the Romans really have the sparkling white teeth they hoped for, or was it all just a cultural placebo? Some historians argue that the practice of using urine for teeth whitening was more about the symbolic act of cleansing and personal care than it was about achieving a perfectly white smile. The act of using urine, an otherwise unappealing substance, may have represented a sort of dedication to cleanliness and orderliness, a virtue highly prized in Roman society. Given that Roman society linked hygiene with moral virtue, the act of whitening one's teeth with urine could have been more about upholding social expectations and personal discipline than about achieving true cosmetic success. On the other hand, some researchers suggest that the use of urine might have been surprisingly effective in its own right. After all, ammonia does break down organic stains, and perhaps the ancient Romans were onto something with their creative use of a readily available resource. In the absence of other dental treatments, urine, with its ammonia and disinfectant properties, might have been the best option they had. And let's not forget the plethora of other unorthodox practices in ancient medicine that, while bizarre, had some grounding in effective natural remedies. Even with modern knowledge, there's something to be said for how resourceful the Romans were. They didn't have access to our whitening strips or fancy toothpaste, but they made do with what they had, using ammonia and urine to help keep their teeth as clean and white as possible. While we may scoff at the idea today, it's a reminder of how ancient cultures used creativity and available resources to solve everyday problems. In a way, the Romans' reliance on urine for teeth whitening is a testament to their ingenuity, even if it wasn't exactly the brightest idea for oral health. Historians still argue about how widely the practice was adopted. Was it just a quirky habit for the elite, or did it spread to common Romans as well? And did it work? The jury is still out on whether urine-based teeth whitening was truly effective, or if it was simply a strange tradition that people continued because it had been passed down through the ages. One thing is clear, though: the Roman obsession with hygiene and appearance left us with some memorable, and often bewildering, practices that still spark curiosity today. While the ancient Romans may not have perfected the art of teeth whitening, their practices surrounding hygiene and personal care left a lasting impact on later civilizations. The Romans were pioneers when it came to hygiene, setting standards that would influence not only the Mediterranean world but also Europe and the Middle East for centuries to come. Whether it was their baths, their use of oils and perfumes, or even their peculiar reliance on urine, Roman hygiene practices were a major cultural force that shaped how personal care was viewed in subsequent societies. Let's start with the most iconic Roman contribution to hygiene: the public baths. The Roman bathhouses were grand, elaborate structures designed for both hygiene and socializing. They were equipped with heated floors, steaming pools, and even massage areas, making them the ancient equivalent of modern-day spas. These bathhouses were places where people of all social classes could gather to relax, socialize, and, of course, cleanse themselves. The importance of the bathhouses spread throughout the Roman Empire, influencing bathing culture in regions far beyond the empire's borders. As the Roman Empire expanded, it took its bathhouse culture with it. Many cultures, from the Byzantines to the early Muslims, adopted and adapted Roman bathing practices, making public baths a staple in many parts of the world. Even in the Middle Ages, public bathhouses continued to be popular in Europe, though by then, bathing had begun to lose some of its cultural significance. It wasn't until the Renaissance that bathing regained some of its esteem, thanks in part to the Romans' pioneering efforts. The influence of Roman hygiene and their communal approach to cleanliness shaped how future generations valued personal grooming and public hygiene. Beyond the baths, Roman dental care practices also had a ripple effect on future cultures. While the use of urine for teeth whitening may have faded with time, the concept of maintaining a clean mouth was not lost. As time went on, cultures like the Greeks, Arabs, and eventually the Europeans continued to emphasize oral health. The Romans might not have invented toothpaste, but their belief in the importance of clean teeth and fresh breath laid the groundwork for future developments in dental care. Historians still argue over the extent to which Roman hygiene influenced later cultures. Was it the Romans themselves who spread these practices, or did they adopt and modify practices from other ancient civilizations, like the Greeks or Egyptians? Some scholars believe that the Romans were particularly good at organizing and institutionalizing hygiene practices, which helped solidify their influence. Others argue that Roman hygiene was more of a reflection of the broader Mediterranean cultural exchange that occurred over centuries. Regardless of the debate, what's clear is that Roman hygiene practices, including their sometimes odd use of substances like urine, played a significant role in shaping how later civilizations approached cleanliness, health, and personal grooming. The Romans may have had some bizarre methods for achieving these goals, but their impact on hygiene practices cannot be denied. Whether through the spread of bathhouses, the continued importance of dental care, or their innovation with cleaning products, Roman practices set the stage for how societies would evolve in their approach to personal care. Beyond its use in dental care and laundry, urine held a critical place in Roman medicine. It wasn't just a tool for cleaning clothes or whitening teeth, it was an integral part of the medical practices that Romans relied on to treat various ailments. You might find it hard to imagine, but urine was considered so important in Roman medicine that it was prescribed for everything from wound treatment to digestive issues. In fact, ancient Roman doctors treated urine as a valuable diagnostic and therapeutic substance, similar to how modern medicine might use blood tests to identify illnesses. Urine's role in Roman medicine was largely due to its high ammonia content, which gave it antiseptic properties. This made it particularly useful for treating wounds and sores. When a Roman citizen had a cut or abrasion, it wasn't uncommon for them to soak the wound in urine, believing that it could help disinfect the area and promote healing. The ammonia in the urine was thought to kill bacteria and prevent infection, much like modern antiseptic solutions, though the Romans had no idea about bacteria at the time. They simply trusted the power of urine's pungent properties to cleanse the body, inside and out. The medical use of urine extended beyond external wounds. Some Roman physicians recommended drinking small quantities of urine as a remedy for digestive problems, believing it could help with digestion or ease the pain of a bloated stomach. They also used urine to treat conditions like jaundice and other illnesses involving the liver, as it was thought to have a purifying effect. Ancient texts, including writings from Roman doctors like Galen, make reference to the various medicinal uses of urine, showing that it was regarded as an essential element in the Roman pharmacopoeia. Historians still argue about how much of this practice was based on genuine medicinal benefits and how much was a product of superstition or cultural habit. Some scholars believe that the use of urine was more symbolic than practical, a reflection of Roman faith in natural remedies and the healing power of common substances. Others suggest that Roman doctors were ahead of their time in recognizing the disinfectant properties of ammonia, making urine a surprisingly effective treatment, albeit without a full understanding of why it worked. It's also worth noting that urine wasn't just used by common folk for home remedies. High-ranking Roman physicians, too, incorporated it into their medical practice. The elite may have had access to more sophisticated treatments, but even they didn't shy away from using urine in their healing practices. This widespread use of urine across all layers of Roman society speaks to just how deeply ingrained it was in Roman life, not only for everyday tasks like cleaning and teeth whitening but also in serious medical treatments. In the end, Roman medicine's reliance on urine, much like their use of it in hygiene, seems odd to us today. Yet, this ancient practice speaks to the resourcefulness and ingenuity of the Romans, who used what they had available to care for their bodies and health. While modern medicine has long since moved away from such remedies, the Romans' trust in the healing power of urine is a fascinating glimpse into how ancient cultures approached healthcare and wellness. As we've seen, the use of urine in ancient Roman society was widespread and integral to personal hygiene and medical practices. However, just as with any practice, things change. Over time, the use of urine, particularly for whitening teeth, began to fade. The decline of urine-based whitening is a story of shifting cultural norms, evolving scientific understanding, and, of course, the development of new and better methods for dental care. The decline of urine's use for whitening teeth can be traced to several factors. First, as the Roman Empire began to collapse and the early Middle Ages took hold, many Roman practices, hygienic or otherwise, were abandoned or altered. The knowledge of various cleaning methods, including urine-based techniques, was lost, partly due to the disruption of trade and intellectual exchange that came with the fall of the empire. For centuries, much of the sophisticated Roman understanding of hygiene and personal care was forgotten or at least overshadowed by more rudimentary practices. In addition, as the Renaissance dawned, interest in medicine and science was revitalized, and new, more effective dental practices began to emerge. Over time, more advanced techniques in teeth whitening, such as the use of pumice stones and even the first rudimentary forms of tooth powder, replaced the use of urine. With the development of these new methods, which were both more effective and more socially acceptable, the practice of using urine faded into the background. However, it wasn't just the decline of the Roman Empire that contributed to the cessation of urine-based whitening. It was also the changing views on hygiene and cleanliness in the centuries that followed. As medieval Europe moved away from many of the Roman habits and developed its own ideas of hygiene, the thought of using bodily fluids, especially urine, for personal care became less appealing. By the time modern dentistry emerged, with all its advancements in toothpaste, toothbrushes, and professional cleanings, the idea of using urine for any sort of hygienic purpose seemed more like a bizarre relic of the past than a viable treatment. Historians still argue about the reasons for the decline of urine as a whitening agent. Was it simply the loss of Roman knowledge and techniques, or was there a deeper cultural shift away from such unconventional methods? Some argue that as European society became more concerned with moral cleanliness and the social implications of hygiene, using urine for personal care became increasingly unpalatable. Others believe that new scientific discoveries about tooth care, along with the development of alternative whitening methods, made the use of urine obsolete. What we can say for sure is that by the 19th century, the use of urine for whitening teeth was long forgotten, replaced by more conventional and socially acceptable methods. Today, we use whitening toothpaste, professional treatments, and even laser technology to brighten our smiles, leaving ancient Roman techniques far behind. However, the fact that urine was once a trusted ingredient in Roman dental care is a reminder of just how resourceful, and sometimes strange, ancient practices could be. While urine-based practices have long since fallen out of favor, the legend of their effectiveness and the mysteries surrounding ancient Roman hygiene methods continue to captivate the imagination. Even today, urine is often referenced in myths, some of which are more closely tied to popular culture than to historical fact. The story of how ancient civilizations used urine for whitening teeth may have faded from common practice, but it's far from forgotten. In fact, rumors and myths surrounding urine's role in hygiene have persisted into modern times. One common myth is that urine-based treatments are still used in some parts of the world. While it's true that some cultures have historically used urine for medicinal purposes, ranging from treating wounds to using it as a remedy for skin conditions, the idea of using urine as a regular whitening agent for teeth has largely been discarded. Still, there are fringe groups that claim urine therapy is a natural, holistic approach to health, including oral hygiene. These modern proponents argue that urine, due to its supposed detoxifying properties, can still be beneficial for skin and even dental care. However, these ideas are largely not supported by modern science, and dental professionals would strongly advise against using urine for such purposes. Interestingly, urine still occasionally pops up in various myths and misconceptions about hygiene. For example, some believe that urine can be used to treat sunburns, and others claim that it can help eliminate toxins from the body when applied to the skin. While these myths have no basis in current medical practice, they reveal a continued fascination with the idea of using urine as a natural healing substance. The persistence of these myths is, in part, a reflection of the long-standing historical belief that bodily fluids, particularly urine, have mystical or therapeutic powers. Despite the abandonment of urine in mainstream hygiene practices, its legacy lives on in the modern imagination. Movies, books, and television shows occasionally reference ancient urine-based practices, often to humorous or grotesque effect, further solidifying its place in our cultural mythology. From quirky references in comedy to pseudoscientific claims, the idea that urine can solve everyday problems continues to make appearances, albeit with more skepticism than in ancient times. Historians still debate whether ancient people truly believed in the healing powers of urine or whether these practices were more symbolic than anything else. Some scholars argue that urine's association with sacred rituals and its use in mummification and other bodily care methods were rooted in religious or spiritual beliefs rather than actual medical efficacy. Other historians suggest that ancient cultures, including the Romans, may have believed that urine contained mystical properties that could connect them to the divine or protect them from evil spirits. Whether these ideas were grounded in fact or simply superstition, it's clear that urine held an important place in many ancient cultures' worldviews. In modern times, however, the widespread use of urine-based treatments has mostly vanished, replaced by more effective, scientifically supported methods. Yet, the myths surrounding ancient hygiene practices, along with the odd but fascinating story of Roman urine-based teeth whitening, continue to spark curiosity and remind us of how different, and at times bizarre, the past can seem. As we come to the end of our journey through the odd yet fascinating world of Roman hygiene, one thing becomes abundantly clear: the Romans were a culture of remarkable ingenuity. Their approach to personal care, hygiene, and even teeth whitening may seem downright bizarre by today's standards, but their resourcefulness and creativity in using the available resources around them were nothing short of impressive. Whether it was the use of urine for whitening teeth, their vast network of public baths, or their innovative use of natural substances like oils and herbs, the Romans were a people who made the most of what they had. Think about it, these were people who didn't have access to the sophisticated dental care or advanced hygiene products we take for granted today. Yet, in their own way, they were pioneers. While the use of urine for teeth whitening might seem strange, it's important to remember that the Romans didn't have access to the scientific knowledge we have today. What they did have was a keen sense of observation, a reliance on the natural world, and an understanding that cleanliness and appearance were essential to one's social standing. Roman hygiene practices were not just about personal grooming, they were about societal expectations. Cleanliness wasn't only seen as an indicator of personal well-being, it was also a reflection of moral and social virtue. A clean body and a bright smile spoke to a disciplined, well-maintained individual, and in Roman society, that was a person who had earned respect. Teeth whitening, while certainly an oddity to us today, was just one part of this broader cultural framework. Historians still argue about the true significance of these practices. Were they simply practical solutions to daily problems, or were they steeped in symbolic and spiritual meaning? Some scholars suggest that Roman hygiene practices, including the use of urine in various forms, were tied to their beliefs in the divine and the purity of the body. The fact that bodily cleanliness was so closely linked to moral integrity and divine favor speaks to the depth of Roman cultural values. As strange as it may seem, ancient Roman hygiene practices were ahead of their time in many ways. While modern society has refined our understanding of health and cleanliness, we still find ourselves drawn to some of the basic principles the Romans practiced: personal care, cleanliness, and respect for the body. Of course, we've moved beyond the use of urine for teeth whitening, but the underlying principle remains: maintaining good hygiene and caring for one's appearance is essential to both individual well-being and social standing. Looking back, it's clear that Roman ingenuity, though at times odd, was deeply practical and connected to the broader rhythms of their society. The things they did with what they had available, from whitening their teeth to cleaning their clothes, reflect a culture that was inventive, resourceful, and above all, practical. Even today, as we look back on these odd Roman practices, we're reminded of how far we've come, and perhaps how much we still have to learn from the way they made do with the resources at hand.